Okay, we're talking about Divinity Original Sin 2. It's funny to think when I look back at some of my earliest reviews, terrible quality. Divinity Original Sin, the original, the first one was one of the first games that I ever reviewed, and we've come a long way since then, and so has this game. Spoiler alert for this review, this is maybe one of my favorite RPG games of all time. I am incredibly impressed with what this dev team has been able to come up with and progress from in terms of the progression from Divinity Original Sin 1 to this game. They've done a really great job, and I'd love to share with you why I feel that way. Divinity Original Sin 2 takes the solid foundation that was the original and builds on it with added a couple of tweaks here and there and some new added mechanics that really work well to hone and refine that party-based, turn-based combat gameplay. A huge strength of the original was using the different elements and marking them on the ground, using puddles and lightning to have varied effects, and they've added a few more of those effects and a wider range of abilities for you to use that really lean into how quality that was. Using the area of effect stuff to cause different effects on the battlefield is really strongly at play here and is a huge part of the game, and adds another depth of strategy to the just hack and slash, move around, make your attack, use your ability gameplay. It adds a whole nother depth of strategy that makes winning these battles using this stuff and doing it intelligently makes it feel so satisfying. The character progression in Divinity Original Sin 2 is maybe one of my favorite character progressions I've seen in any game ever. This is the closest that I've ever seen to a traditional pen and paper RPG out of a game, with the tons of variety that you can choose from, the great and solid use of the ability scores that actually translate well into video game form. It's not quite the pen and paper based RPGs like D&D and stuff like that, but they've taken the solid foundation and managed to find a really solid way to make fun and compelling single player gameplay, also with multiplayer, but still single player gameplay with that setup. You have the option to form your character and your party members to fit your specifications. If you want to be a huge, bulking, burly barbarian type who also uses spells, you can totally do that, and it doesn't really hurt you like it would in pen and paper RPGs or even other video game RPGs. They found a way to intricately weave together the different ability uses, how you accumulate abilities, the progression of your character, so that everything seems fairly balanced, and if you play the game intelligently, really any type of classification works for your character. Also, a solid upgrade on the original is the refinement of that fight, loot. When you fight a battle and then search the kind of the bodies or the area around these major battles that you have, you often find powerful and often magical items, a lot more frequently than I found in the original. This really refines this loop of engage in a tough fight, spend your really hard-earned magical items, your grenades, your special arrows, your scrolls, whatever you need to win the fight, because on the other end there's more and sometimes even more powerful weapons and items and consumables that you pick up on the other end, making for a really great loop of give it your all in the battle and feel comfortable knowing that you can pick up some loot and give you new and varied effects afterwards. This dev team worked really hard to take the basic ability score system and refine them and make some subtle changes that I think work really well to strengthen the game as a whole. The slight changes to the wits ability and how you actually accumulate your spell slots and how you can use these different things, and the addition of the polymorph, a skill tree or whatever, I think work really well and are all fairly balanced and give a ton of fun options. And it just makes sense. It's a little bit more user-friendly the way you build these things out, and it's explained well with all the pop-ups and everything, and I think if you spend the time you can really craft and build a character that you'll grow to love and have a ton of fun playing as. The story, I feel like, is similar to the first in that it's actually quite jumbled and disjointed, and all the different quests don't really fit together that well, kind of similar to a pen and paper RPG experience. Things are just jumbled together kind of sometimes with varying quests, and you meet some people who have their own separate stories, but I think the delivery that the main quest arc is delivered, I think, is done a little bit better in this game than it was in the previous edition. You have a little bit better idea of what's going on without doing additional reading and sifting through the journal and making sure you're trying to pay really close attention to what's going on. I think it kind of holds your hand a little bit through, while like a little bit more explaining what the heck's actually going on. The fact that you're a god woken and you have these cool abilities to use, and the whole point of that I think makes more sense to me now that I've played through this game than when I played the first. I didn't really understand the lore and the setting. Things were kind of thrown at you and you're just kind of expected to just pick it up. Here I think it's pushed onto you a little bit more gradually. You start in the prison area, you've got to break out as we kind of explain the setting and the lore and where the heck you are and what's happening. I think the game gives you a little bit more time to experience that. There's some quality voice acting, and a surprising amount of the dialogue is voice acted. A lot of the side quests have quality voice acting for all of their NPC dialogue, which is phenomenal. Your character has a large amount of voice acted lines, as do your other companion characters. And each of the companion characters have their own separate, unique story arcs that you can play through if you choose to play as them, which I think is a really cool touch. My guess is that a lot more people are going to want to build their own character, but if you do choose to play as those characters, they have their own kind of secret, unique story that you can discover and play through with different unique options for accessibility to certain areas and just whole new quest options, which I think adds a real fun and unique flavor to the game. In terms of presentation, I don't think there's much really to note here in Divinity Original Sin 2. I think it makes some small graphical improvements from the original. Smooth frame rate, I think navigation makes a lot of sense. The music is quality as always. The voice acting is beautiful. I think the effects work well. The explosions and smoke and environment, I think all looks beautiful, as it did in the first, with the minor kind of tech upgrade that comes as you develop over the years. The overall world, I think, is fairly well designed. The beginning area, I think, in particular, gives the player an opportunity to explore, but in a confined area, so that it's kind of difficult to get really lost. You kind of get your bearings, learn how the game is played through the opening area, and then kind of gives you a more wider area to explore, which I certainly appreciated. There is a ton of content here, a ton of quests, a ton of space, a ton of battles, a whole load of content, hundreds of hours potentially if you went and searched through it all, which is just amazing, incredible that they're able to produce that much content that's high quality with voice acting. It's just very impressive. I will say there aren't many strong tools for navigating the world. There is your map, but it's hard to really tell where you're at and where some of the quest markers are and who exactly you're looking for, what these people look like, which, you know, it's up to a matter of opinion. If you like to be kind of prodded and know where the hell you're going and what you're doing, then this game doesn't really hold your hand in that way, which for some people might really appreciate that hey, no, I want this to be realistic. I want to have to find who these people are, even if I don't know what they look like or where exactly they are, which, if that's you, this game will definitely suit your tastes. I feel it's got a pretty solid balance of helping you get the general area of where you need to go, but you, in the end, have to find who these people are and the quests and where these people are, and solve things yourself that way. Overall, I think Divinity Original Sin 2 is a phenomenal, incredibly well-made game that provides hours of content, a ton of quality gameplay, solid character progression with an insane amount of replayability to play all the different class and build combinations, and there's just so much stuff here. It's maybe one of my favorite, if not my favorite, RPG of all time. So for that reason, I have to give Divinity Original Sin 2 a 10 out of 10. A legendary game. I am incredibly impressed with what the developer's been able to produce in Divinity Original Sin 2. An incredible amount of content, incredible amount of quality, a ton of creativity in the way they've applied the stories and new options they have. I didn't even talk about the game manager mode that allows you to play with your friends and build things in that way. You can play up to 4-player multiplayer. I didn't even mention that. There's all sorts of new stuff added in this game on top of what was a phenomenal base in Divinity Original Sin. So, for that reason, you gotta pick it up if you're a fan of RPGs. Highly, highly recommended, a legendary game. Well, that'll do it for Divinity Original Sin 2. I gotta thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found the review helpful. If you guys appreciate Divinity Original Sin 2, comment down below. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite RPG of all time, like I said. So, would love to hear your thoughts and maybe some of your experiences with the game, and if you think it's as good as I'm saying it is. But I appreciate you guys so much for watching. I gotta thank you. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. But thank you again so much for watching, and we hope to see you next time on Yes Guy Gaming.